Good evening. It's 6:30, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Tonight, our chair and vice chair could not attend the meeting, so for our first order of business, we need to nominate a commissioner to chair the meeting. Do I have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Jill Reynolds for our chair.
Would you accept the nomination, Jill?
Yes, be happy to.
And do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. And all commissioners in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, and you guys can switch seats. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jill Reynolds, and I'm going to be filling in for the chairman and the vice chair tonight, so bear with me if I'm a little new to this. We're going to have a roll call. Please note for the record that we do have a quorum. We're happy to have our alternates, Commissioner Reeves and Valerie Manley, joining us tonight. We're happy to have them. And also want to welcome a new commissioner, Jeremy Scott, to the Planning Commission. Welcome. So just before we get started, if everybody would make sure your cell phones and mobile devices are all turned off or silenced tonight. So we'll get started. I'd like to ask the board to consider the meeting minutes of January 4th. Does anybody have any comments or changes? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 4th, 2024.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
All commissioners in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? And the motion to approve has passed. Well, so far so good, huh? Okay, are there any items from the board members tonight that we need to discuss before moving on? Any items from the staff? Great. So just to remind everybody that we are appointed, each commissioner is appointed by a city council person, and we are a recommending body. So we listen to the applications, and we make a decision, and we will vote on it tonight, and then it moves forward to the city council, where the final decision will be made on Monday, February 26th at 6:30. So tonight, we have a light agenda. We have 2 items being considered for tonight's meeting. Our first agenda item is Z-24-03/V-24-03 Mamitas, Cantina, and Tacos on 312 North Main Street. So I think, Mr. Woodman, you're presenting?
Thank you, Chairwoman and Commissioners. The first item before you is a request for a rezoning conditional use and variance to allow for the redevelopment of a property with a 2-story, just over 4,000 square foot building for a sit-down restaurant and professional office space on 0.59 acres in the downtown. Rezoning is requested from O&I Office Institutional to DTLW Downtown Live Work. And a conditional use is requested to allow a restaurant for Mamitas, Tacos, and Cantina. There's also a variance request to allow a storm water drain in the 50-foot undisturbed buffer at the rear of the property. Do have the location map on the overhead. The property is located at 312 North Main Street. It's on the west side of North Main Street, north of Mayfield Road. Property was developed in 1940. It has a one-story, just under 1,300 square foot building on the property. Was previously originally used as a single-family home. Surrounding properties, you have a dental office to the north, a chiropractic center to the east. A bakery was approved in the property to the south, and then there is an unplatted single-family detached residential lot located to the west. That's a lot, that's a residential property on Canton Street that backs up to the property. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is mixed use live work, which allows the proposed zoning that the applicant is requesting. As I mentioned, there is a variance request with the application. There's a 50-foot undisturbed buffer where a commercial property abuts a residential property. So this is the applicant's site plan here. This is North Main Street. And then there are residential properties that front on Canton Street at the rear of the properties along the west side of North Main Street. So where a commercial property abuts a residential property, we do require a 50-foot undisturbed buffer. The applicant does have a catchment area with a drainage structure, as you see right here. The catchment area is going to be like a depressed area that is created to basically direct water to that drain. So the properties surrounding this property actually sit at a higher elevation, and so the runoff runs off those properties onto this property. So that's the purpose of the drain back there. It is an undisturbed buffer, so we don't allow anything in it. So that's why they're asking for the variance to allow that drainage structure in there. There are trees in this area. However, the trees are about the first 20 feet of the buffer. The rest of the buffer, the last 30 feet of the buffer, there's no vegetation. So the applicant does have a landscape plan that I'll show you in just a bit, where they will revegetate that area with evergreen material. Of course, with this application, there is also a request for a conditional use. So in the downtown live work zoning district, we allow residential uses, we allow office uses. There are some light retail uses as well as restaurant that you can seek a conditional use. The reason for that is downtown live work is shown in the future land use to be appropriate on Thompson Street as well as North Main Street north of Mayfield Road. And so we require a conditional use for uses such as a restaurant because we want to make sure that the use, we need to look at those on a case-by-case basis and make sure that the use is not going to impact surrounding properties. So you have a conditional use for a restaurant for Mamitas Tacos and Cantina. The applicant stated in the application that this is a new business. The restaurant would occupy about 2,900 square feet on the first floor of the building. And then it does say in the staff report it's a 900 square foot outdoor seating area. The applicant did provide an updated site plan, and the outdoor seating area is reduced somewhat. It's about 745 square feet. And so this is the building that you see right here on the site plan. They are proposing to reuse the existing structure that is on the property, add to the building footprint of that structure, and then go up with a second floor. This area out here in front of the building is the outdoor seating area that I was referring to. Mamitas is according to the application, is a full-service restaurant serving authentic Mexican street food. The applicant is anticipating up to 10 employees. And then hours of operation were listed in the application as Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then Friday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I mentioned on the site plan that they are adding on to the existing building and going up with an additional story to make a total of 2 stories. It is a little over 4,000 square foot building. So on the second floor, this is the first floor of the structure. This shows the outdoor seating, the restaurant and bar area here, and then their kitchen back here. This is the second floor of the building. This is just 2 small offices and a conference room for a professional office. The existing curb cut on the property is a little bit further north than they show here. The applicant had worked with GDOT, and GDOT actually made them move the existing curb cut, so that's why you see it coming into about the center of the property. As you probably have seen along Main Street, GDOT is in the middle of a construction project where they will be adding larger sidewalks, so this will make this area of North Main Street more pedestrian friendly in the future. And then just noted that the building, the proposed building is set back about 47 feet from North Main Street. We allow shallow setbacks in the downtown master plan, so they are meeting the minimum setback requirements. The applicant did provide this morning, I did receive an updated site plan from the applicant, so I will note some date changes in the conditions associated with this new site plan. The only thing that really has been added on the site plan is they're showing a tree save that we were requiring in the conditions at the front of the property, approximately in this location. And then there was also a previous staff comment that the dumpster is located right here at this point. And so we required a terminating landscape island between the last parking space and the dumpster. So they did add that in. It did reduce their parking count from 15 spaces to 14 spaces, but it still exceeds the minimum required in the downtown. Site plan shows meets the minimum 10% amenity space. Amenity space is shown on here with the outdoor seating area. The balcony on the second floor of the building also counts towards amenity space, as well as the landscaped front yard. The trees in the rear buffer will be saved. So let me just go to the tree save plan real quick. So this is a landscape plan. The limits of disturbance are shown approximately in this location here. And so these large circles here represent the existing trees that will be saved in the buffer. And then all of this is the additional landscaping that they will add to make that buffer a screen where it is currently sparse. As I mentioned, there's a couple tree saves that we recommend, that the city arborist recommended. There were a couple tree saves on the south side of the property that we asked the applicant to look at. There was an oak and a China fir. The oak was being impacted by the property to the south as well as the applicant's property, more than the 20%, and so it cannot be saved. We do have in the conditions that the China fir, if the impacts to the critical root zone on that tree are 20% or less, that we would like to see it saved. That is listed in the condition. We just don't have that information yet to know if that can be saved or not. And then the other tree save is tree number 121, which sits approximately here. The applicant will need to construct that outdoor elevated deck area that represents the outdoor seating area in such a way to minimize the impacts on that particular tree. If you're familiar with Crew Wine Bar at Avalon, kind of right in that valet, right in front of that valet area, we have a similar decking that comes right up to a large tree. So it's similar. It would be a similar type construction. And then the renderings. So these are the applicant's renderings. They're proposing to build the building in the mercantile mill style. The applicant, the city's downtown consultant, did review the applicant's renderings, and he had several comments. The applicant has addressed some of those comments, but not all of those comments. And we have indicated in the condition, it does indicate that the approval would be subject to these renderings and compliance with the downtown consultant's comments. Some of those additional comments just had to do with the cornice of the roof and these asymmetric windows. There are some additional that dealt with this kind of balcony area here as well. Of course, we looked at the review criteria for rezoning, conditional use, and variance. We do believe that the proposed zoning it's consistent with the future land use of the property. And it is consistent with the development pattern along North Main Street. We do not believe that the request will negatively impact the natural environment if we have the tree saves that are asked for in the conditions. We don't think that the proposed building would have significant impacts on public services and facilities. It's relatively small building. With the conditional use review criteria, of course, the site will be developed in accordance with our site access requirements and compliant with off-street parking and buffering. And we do believe that there are extraordinary or exceptional conditions pertaining to the property because of its size and adjacency to residential development. So these properties, these smaller properties along North Main Street have been impacted by the GDOT project from right-of-way takings. They back up to residential properties at the back, so they have buffer requirements as well. And we see that the existing buffer on the property really only has 20 feet of trees, and then the rest of the 30 feet is really not even vegetated. So by revegetating that buffer, we're actually getting a better buffer than we have today. So we are supportive of the variance request. The applicant did provide a citizen participation report. They indicated that they had received some feedback from several neighbors, and they did get some support for their request. They did indicate that they met with the adjacent residential property at the rear of the property who expressed concerns with noise, odors, and the buffer variance at the rear of the property. And city staff has also received correspondence from that same neighbor, and we have worked with that neighbor to try to come up with some conditions to address the concerns on the property. Some concerns that were provided by that neighbor but did not make it into the report just because they were provided after the report was complete. The neighbor did ask that if it is approved, and I don't think the neighbor is supportive of the request, but she did indicate that if it is approved, she would request that there's no windows on the second floor of the rear elevation facing her property. And then she also inquired about whether or not an underground dumpster would be possible. We did a little bit of digging into that. It doesn't seem like our current haulers that are authorized to conduct business in the city, of which there's four haulers available to commercial properties. We don't think that they have the ability to service an underground dumpster, and I'm not aware that we have any in the city right now, so I don't know that it would be appropriate to add a condition for the dumpsters, but I do want to let you know that the neighbor did ask about that. The community zoning information meeting, this item was presented at the January 11th, 2024 community zoning information meeting, and there were 2 public comments in support of the request on the sign-in sheets. And with that, staff is recommending approval of the request subject to 22 conditions, and I'm going to go through there. Based on this new site plan, updated site plan, and updated landscape plan, I'm going to have a couple changes to the conditions, and I'll note those. So condition 1 is a site plan specific condition, and we would need to update the date of that site plan from 12/5/23 and change that to 1/30/24. Condition 2 is the architecture and material condition, tying it to Exhibit B that you see on the screen in front of you, subject to compliance with the downtown code and the downtown, addressing the downtown consultant's comments. Condition 3 requires a decorative skirting around the elevated outdoor seating deck. And of course, everything is going to be subject to design review board. This is in the downtown, so this will all go for final approval to design review board. Condition 4, restaurant with no drive-through shall be added as a conditional use at 312 North Main Street and limited to no more than 2,910 square feet on the first floor of the building. And we need to change 900 to 745 square foot outdoor seating area. Professional office space shall be limited to no more than 1,118 square feet. Condition 5 limits the conditional use approval for the restaurant to Mamitas, Tacos, and Cantina, and it does not allow for any subleasing to any other restaurants. Condition 6 ties the hours of operation to the hours the applicant requested in the application. Condition 7 addresses the 50-foot planted buffer at the rear of the property. We would need to change the reference to the landscape plan prepared by Bilson and Associates, and we'll need to change that from dated 11/30/23 to revised 1/30/24. That happens in 2 locations in that same condition. Condition 8, North Main Street streetscape shall include decorative pedestrian lighting as approved by staff. 9 addresses the 10-foot landscape strip along North Main Street. Condition 10, minimum 5-foot landscape strip shall be provided along the north and south property lines and planted with a mix of evergreen and hardwood trees and shrubs as approved by DRB. 11, project entrance shall include decorative landscape and hardscape as approved by DRB. Condition 12 identifies the open space on the site plan prepared by Partain Engineering LLC, and we need to change that date from 12/5/23 to 1/30/24. Condition 13, developer shall plant creeping phlox, pink or white, at the top of the GDOT wall along the property frontage with final approval by DRB. Creeping vines shall be planted to cover other retaining and low walls located on the property with final approval by DRB. Condition 14 is the tree save condition requiring tree number 121 to be saved. And if the impacts to tree number 120A, the 25-inch China fir, are less than 20%, then we'd like to see that tree saved as well. Condition 5 deals with the dumpster enclosure, requiring it to have a brick to match the primary building, an opaque decorative metal screen with final approval by DRB. Conditions 16 through 22 are conditions that were placed on this, and these really relate to concerns that were voiced from the neighbor at the rear. So condition 16, venting for the restaurant shall be directed away from the adjacent residential properties to the rear. Condition 17, live music shall be limited to the interior of the building. Outdoor speakers for music shall be limited to the outdoor seating area at the front of the building and shall not be audible from the adjacent residential properties. 18, employee break area shall be limited to the interior of the building or a designated outdoor area within 10 feet of the building. 19, signage on the rear of the building shall not be illuminated. 20, to minimize impacts to nearby residential properties, grease traps shall be located as close as possible to the exterior of the building with final approval by staff. 21, decorative metal fence shall be provided between the parking lot and planted buffer and shall extend from side property line to side property line as approved by DRB. And condition number 22, site lighting in the rear parking lot shall be on a timer with lights turned off at 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 12 a.m. Friday through Saturday. And that concludes the report. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Michael. As always, you do such a great job, so appreciate that. I'd open any questions from the board.
I do have a quick question, Michael. Thank you for the presentation. That was great. Can you just put up for me the tree replacement plan where that revegetated buffer is located?
Yes.
I tried to pinpoint, I know on one of the other slides, I think it's the site plan slide, shows where that catchment area is in the storm drain. But I'm even more interested in, I don't even know if this is possible. I know you're good, but, right, but can you go to the other one? Right, so that's the one, okay. Back to this one. Are you able to where is it on here? I can't. Is it the little square box?
Yeah, the dot in the.
Got it, okay.
This is the drainage, that's the drainage structure.
Okay,
You
got
can
it.
see, so the properties around this property, kind of at the back here, sit higher.
Right.
So the stormwater runoff is running off those properties onto the rear of this property. So the drain is approximately here, and you can see an underground pipe as this dash line, kind of bringing it out to
Got it.
here and out of the property.
And so, and the reason I'm asking this, I know there was a public comment that had some concern about this, but as I sit here as a regular citizen, layperson, it seems to me like that catchment storm drain is going to be literally in the middle of a revegetated area. That's kind of what I'm seeing. Is that fair?
Yes, so the idea here is you install this drain, you'll create a kind of depression in this area so that water collects here and collects to this drain. And then once that is installed, then this area is revegetated. So everything that you see here, those are all replantings. All the symbols that you see in here are various replantings. There's a variety of emerald green giants and magnolias, evergreen type material that is proposed.
And just real quick, related to that, because I know, and especially for the public and myself, lay people, if you were to ask 10 people, what does a catchment area and storm drain look like, they may not know. So could you, I'm assuming, like the Toll Brothers project up by Parkbrook, it's not, some massive thing, right? So it's, okay.
So this is basically what that looks like, that drain looks like.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
It can be circular or square. Typically, it's about 4 by 4.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, to follow on that, any home has to have a driveway, but in the back, it's showing, the parking area. So that's going to create some runoff, and I know we've dealt with runoff issues just as Todd was saying. Is this going to be a bricked driveway and parking area? Is that what it's showing, and that's what it's going to be? So there is going to be some pervious material there?
Yeah, that's actually a good catch. I did not mention that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Perkins. So in addition to this storm structure here that will pipe that water off-site, the applicant is also proposing pervious pavers within the driveway and the parking lot area, and that's also to address some stormwater needs for the property.
Quick question. The vegetation that's going to be put in that back area by the storm drain, first of all, the vegetation will help absorb water, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's a good thing. And if the other properties are higher, then that at least provides a collection area. The plantings, are we going to make sure that they are resistant to, just occasional flooding? Because you wouldn't want them to go ahead and plant that as we had all, envisioned, and then have everything die because it's a water catchment area.
Yeah, so this is not meant to be a pond by any means. That's why I was really careful to use that term catchment instead of a stormwater pond. It is not a pond, it's a depressed area. So it's gonna sit a little bit lower than the surrounding grade, but just barely lower. It's really kind of just directing the water to this drain. But yes, in the event that it is holding water, we don't want to plant something in there that would not grow or survive in that kind of condition.
Hi, Michael. I got a few questions for you. Unfamiliar with the maintenance requirements of a catchment drain like that. I would assume that some organic debris can and does get down in there. Does it from time to time need to be reamed?
Yeah, you do have to maintain, it is important that you maintain those.
So it'd be the
Debris
property owners?
can collect there, so it does need to be maintained on a regular basis.
Okay, and that would be the property owner's
Yes,
responsibility on a
it would.
regular basis? Okay. Next question, do we know yet at this point whether the designs for the redo of Highway 9 include a median at that point in the center of the road?
I don't know if there's a median at that particular location. I do want to say that there were some medians proposed along sections of North Main Street. I don't think that there was a median in this location, but I'm not 100%.
Okay, so
I'd
at
have
this
to look
point,
at
we're
that.
not sure, the question goes to whether the entrance needs to be a right-in, right-out?
Well, I will tell you that the entrance that they're showing a full access entrance, and I know that the applicant has worked with GDOT, because GDOT actually made them basically redesign their site after meeting with them. They weren't able to use the existing location for their curb cut, but their engineer is here, so he should
Okay.
be able to answer that
Okay,
question.
so I'll hold that question for then. Okay, I think that was it for now then, thank you.
Michael, to the best of your knowledge, going from we'll just use Alpharetta United Methodist Church, all the way to where the Milton city line kind of skirts over Highway 9. Have we ever had a restaurant in that area? And I mean in the history of Highway 9 from there to that area of Milton, where Dunkin' Donuts is, let's just say.
Yeah, so there is Main Street Walk, kind of up on the north end of North Main Street, kind of before North Main Street takes that curve, and then you're getting into where City of Milton and City of Alpharetta kind of goes in and out through there. At Main Street Walk, we have restaurants existing there today. But I would say, though, between Mayfield Road and Main Street Walk, there really are not existing restaurants there today.
And hadn't been in 100 years.
It was a residential corridor that is, and we see the old residential structures that were along Main Street, and they have converted over to what we typically see today are professional and medical offices through that section. Mayfield to kind of up to Main Street Walk. Now, but the future land use has changed with the downtown master plan. And so that future land use does allow for that change to kind of add in residential and some light retail and restaurant uses. But historically, we've not really seen a lot of restaurants through there.
Because even since the completion of City Center, we really have not seen the sprawl, to use a term, going north on Highway 9 until at least what we control to Windward Parkway, correct?
We really haven't seen that kind of development up there on North Main Street yet. That's correct.
So this may just be an opportunity that no one has ever thought of, or perhaps maybe it's something we need to reconsider. I'm waiting to hear the applicant, and I'd like to hear the applicant, but we have cities around us who, let's just say, at certain times, have moved away from what has been established for a long time, and probably for a good reason. So, I did not, and what are we doing on the sign on the road? I see not why they would have a sign in the backyard where the people live, but what's going to be on Highway 9?
We have not received any of the signage from the applicant. That is typically not something that we would look at right now.
That's a question for the applicant.
Yeah, definitely ask the applicant about that. They may have some additional information for you. We had that condition about the signage on the rear of the building because we do require parking lots to be to the side or rear of a building in the downtown. And so we do have an allowance for signage on the rear of the building. And we just wanted to make sure that that signage was not illuminated so that it didn't impact the residential property at the back.
No, you did a
So
good
that's-
job.
yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Michael, I had one more question.
Sure.
I noticed that the parking design shows spaces perpendicular to the rear property line. In other words, where automobiles would be parking facing the home behind the property. such that there, especially in the evening, would be the risk of headlights going into the homeowner's property. Thinking about the screening that would be in the buffer area, I would assume anything planted would take some time to reach a sufficient density to provide decent screening. Is there any opportunity or ability to create something temporary that would help out the homeowner?
That's certainly up to planning commission's will. If you would like to add a condition for like a temporary screen of some sort, you could certainly do that. Our code with regard to undisturbed buffers required that if they are sparse, that they're revegetated. And I believe the language in the code is that the material is of sufficient size so that the buffer creates an opaque screen within 2 years after planting.
Okay.
So we do have typical size material, landscape material, that we would want to see in the buffer, and that would be enforced by staff.
So we would be perhaps trying to consider something that would make the 2 years bearable. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one quick question. Regarding the parking, tell me again how many parking spaces? You said
So
14?
this updated plan, because they lost the space here next to the dumpster, it went from 15 to 14.
Okay, and did I understand that they're going to have up to 10 employees?
That's what the applicant has indicated,
Okay,
yes.
so do we not find that to be a little bit on the small side of parking?
I don't know if if the applicant responded with a total of 10 employees for the business. That may not be all the employees that they'll have there in one shift.
Okay,
But I would maybe clarify that with the applicant.
okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Michael.
Uh-huh.
Okay, at this time, I'd like the applicant, if they would like to come forward and make a presentation. If you would state your name and address and make sure you press the mic button on for me so we can all hear you. There's a button that you need to press. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael.
Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Lopez. I am the owner of 312 North Main Street. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. My husband and I used to live in Alpharetta. Our first date was in Alpharetta. First home purchased was in Alpharetta. Our oldest daughter was born while we were living in Alpharetta. So there's a big emotional connection between our family and Alpharetta. We now reside on the Johns Creek side, but we come here all the time, and we're very excited about our first business in Alpharetta, if you allow us.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your business and what you're thinking, and then I'll open it up for the board to ask you questions.
Sure. I also wanted to introduce, I have my civil engineer, Chris Partain, here tonight, and he's going to be helping me. And also my architect, Danny Fitzpatrick. And my husband is here as well, Francisco Matut. We currently own accounting and bookkeeping company in Peachtree Corners that we had for the last 10 years. And the majority of our clients are Mexican restaurants. And all these years we've been on site with our clients and learned a lot about the business. And we always had this dream of having our first Mexican restaurant. My husband has been very, very excited about having a nice place that it's catered to the local community, family environment where people can walk to. There's a lot of residential houses around our property. And the Highway 9 corridor kind of opened our eyes about how wonderful it is that GDOT is investing all this money in making sidewalks more friendly for people to walk. And this property is a perfect location for these families to come and have nice dinner in a welcoming environment and walk back home. So that's our vision for this restaurant. We also envision more of a limited menu. We don't want like the big book type of menu that you usually see in our Mexican restaurant. We want something simple, yet something that people will crave and come back to enjoy. I mean, there's so much I can tell you. We've been working on this project for a while now. And
It sounds wonderful, so I'll open it up to the board for questions so that they can ask.
okay, I also have some pictures that I would
Oh,
like to share
okay.
with you,
Please
but
do.
I'm all.
Go ahead.
So can I go over there? Thank you.
You want to make a presentation first? Do you have a presentation?
Well, let me see if I can connect to here.
Okay, you can do the pictures on the,
I have them printed, I have it on here, and I have it on here, so got to be foolproof. Can I just connect this? Yes. And how do we change that? All right, so here's the property. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. It used to be, it used to be an OBGYN practice, and the house has been vacant for going on 10 years now. This is what we purchased. It was not maintained properly. It was badly, well, not even in shape for any use at the time we purchased it. So I just wanted to show you what it looks like. That deck at the front is not even safe to step on right now. And it was just not well maintained. Also, there was a squatter living there. And all the candy you see there, he stole from the CVS down the street. It was so bad that the police knew his name and last name already, so he was a local. He did that. That's not what we signed up to purchase, and that's what we ended up purchasing. He made irreversible damages to this place. He also did the same for my neighbor to the south. They have spent thousands of dollars trying to get things back into a better shape. So this squatter had been living there for a few weeks, months. So he broke a lot of the windows, and it was just really bad. And also, this is the back of the property right now, where there is limited vegetation. And as Michael explained, we're looking to improve that situation with revegetating that buffer zone to the back of the property. So those were the pictures I wanted to show.
okay. Would you like to ask the question, Katie?
I think it was DC Aiken asked about signage, and do you have an idea of what kind of signage you're looking at?
No idea. Because of the big undertaking of purchasing this property and making sure that the design and everything was in compliance, we only took about 2 months to hear back from GDOT. And it's not an easy, quick process. It's been very involved. We haven't even crossed that bridge yet. I don't want to lie to you.
I had a question about, Chairman Reynolds brought up a question about parking, that if you have 4 people of your staff come and park, So that leaves you 10 spaces, and if 2 patrons come in each car in the remaining 10 spaces, that's only 20 people. That's not enough to fill your restaurant. What are you going to do for additional parking or not having you and your staff not park on site?
Yeah, and I really appreciate that because, of course, I want patrons to come eat, right? And they need a parking space. So we have thought about it a lot. Of course, our target is the community that works there, but we have also reached out to our next door neighbor to the north, and we have worked out a connection in between our parking lots. He's here tonight too, if you have any questions. And also our neighbor to the south. We had initially also think about connecting the parking lots, but because of some of the conditions that she was approved on her development, we're no longer able to connect the parking lots, but we're also going to be doing a strategic alliance to be able to rent some of her parking during off-peak hours for her. We've also thought about the shifts. Not all the employees are going to be there at the same time. And we've also entertained the idea of having them meet in one place and then just bring one car. I worked somewhere where we had to do that. Like, part of the schedule was meet somewhere, and then the manager will come get us and take us to the office. So we have thought about it a lot, and I really appreciate it because I want people to come to my restaurant, yes.
And following on Commissioner Perkins' question about parking, of course, there's office space above the restaurant as well, and we would assume that there would be a certain number of people at any one time, especially during the day, who would also need to be able to get there and park. Any thoughts around making sure there's a parking allowance for both them and potential clients for the restaurant?
Yes, so the initial request to have some office space was because we want to move our accounting firm from Peachtree Corners to Alpharetta. We are a family business, so it is my husband, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and me right now. We have a whole group of people that works for our accounting firm, and they're all remote workers. We typically don't get that many clients anymore. One of the blessings brought by COVID is everybody wants to do everything online. We do a lot of consulting on camera. We do taxes also electronically with our clients. So we never need more than 2 parking spaces for our clients, if ever. So that's the reasoning behind not being too concerned about the office part.
So you don't have any discomfort around the limitations of parking spaces?
I do not, especially because working with my 2 next-door neighbors and their willingness to rent some parking spaces for me.
Okay, and you mentioned rent, so I would assume there'd be a contractual relationship.
Yes,
Okay.
we will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've got a quick question. And I'll give you a head. Your architect may want to help with this one because it relates to the architecture and the design. So my only question is, when you do take an 86-year-old building structure and build on top of it and expand it, especially in this area, right? You'll hear, with all due respect to our politicians, you'll hear politicians say, coming down Main Street to downtown Alpharetta, that's the gateway to our city. Coming Old Milton the other way, it's the gateway, it's the entrance to our city, right? And so I trust that all that can take place, and that's not really my scope to worry about that, except, in the staff readout, Mr. Woodman said that for the downtown consultant, they recommended on page 3 of our packet 8 different design requirements. And Mr. Woodman stated that some of them you've agreed to do and others you have not agreed to do. And that relates to that gateway to the city, right? The mercantile style and everything that the downtown consultant is requesting. I want to feel good now that those 8 recommendations and requirements are agreed upon, especially since we have a condition, condition 2, if you agree with the conditions, requires you to do that, but I'm hearing they're not all agreed upon as we speak. Can you help me understand that? Are they all agreed upon? Are the ones that aren't agreed upon, which ones are they and why? Because once again, we're all kind of selfish about Alpharetta. We love Alpharetta for many reasons, but the look and the feel, and especially in the downtown, is critical. Thank you.
If you would, please, if you would step to the mic and say your name and address, please.
Oh, I'm Daniel Fitzpatrick. I'm with Cass Architecture. The architect who reviewed these plans' name is Andy Anderson. He's with Trainer HL. It's a local architecture firm. I had a conversation with Andy, and we just kind of spoke in terms of how kind of architects talk about these things. And some of the comments he had made, we were able to have a good, productive talk about them. And for example, the cornice, I explained that we are doing a cornice, and I think based on my conversation with him, is he wasn't quite seeing the detail of it based on the building elevations. So once I showed him an enlarged view of it, he said he was fine with what we're doing. We're showing the same cornice detail at the floor separation between the first and the second level. He had another comment about having a railing at the upper level balcony, and I explained to him that that's an employee break area. The upper level is actually supposed to be for restaurant use only, even though it's designated as office. There's an employee break room, and I explained to him that it's, as a private balcony, we had it clad with brick rather than a railing anyways, intentionally, and he was fine with that. So it wasn't necessarily that we were trying to negotiate on things. We were just kind of having a discussion. We were showing lap siding by the entrances, and he said that, we should go ahead and take that off and just express the brick. So it's like, okay, we took the siding off, got rid of the cable railing around the outdoor seating area, went with something a little more traditional to the mercantile design style. And overall, I think, based on the conversation I had with Andy, is that everything that we had discussed, we had kind of agreed on, and that's why I provided an updated markup of what he had marked up originally.
And I just want to make sure, Andy is the city's downtown consultant?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So, I'm just going to suggest that area really needs to be nailed down by the time you get to the council meeting, just as friendly advice. I'm not going to, I think, worry about it too much here unless staff is concerned about it, but I feel like there's a disconnect between those requirements, what staff understands that you've agreed to, but yet the ongoing discussion with the architect, and it's hard to kind of mediate over that here. I don't know, it feels soft, and sometimes soft isn't good when you're building a facility on top of an 86-year-old structure in the gateway to the city. We want it to be tight, so.
Well, we're keeping the original footprint of the building mostly so we don't have to add it to the impervious area. Structurally, I'm not concerned about what we're doing. We'll be able to build and expand on the structure that's there. It's a wood frame structure.
I would just suggest between now and council meeting, you get with staff, and staff needs to be able to report, when they give their report, that all the city consultants' design recommendations have been agreed to by the applicant. Because unless that's heard, you're going to get into a spiral like this that could impact whether it gets approved or not. I'm just giving you friendly advice.
Understood.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I do have a question. Do we get to talk about the some of the requests from the neighbor and what we're agreeing to, and if we're not agreeing to any of those?
Should I do that now or after the neighbor comment?
Ms. Lopez, are are you done with your initial presentation? Okay. Why don't we hear from anyone from the community, and you're more than happy to come up to rebuttal and have a discussion from there, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Ms. Taylor, has there been members of the public signed up to speak on this item?
Yes, I have one person in favor, I believe. Brandy O'Neill of 322 North Main Street.
Greetings, Board. I am Brandon O'Neill at 322 North Main Street. I'm a dentist there. I've been there for, I'm sorry, thank you. So I've been in business in Alpharetta since about 2006. Initially, I was practicing in Alpharetta Crossing, which was right next to Alpha Soda. So I was there for about 5 years. And I didn't really like the conditions of my lease. So I decided to buy some property, and the place on Main Street was available. So I was welcomed by Dr. Harvey, who was a general surgeon there, and he did his post-op stuff in the hospital there. And so I'm more or less looking to welcome the new neighbor into the facility next door. I am trying to be a very great neighbor, and so some of the parking issues that she was going to have, I am going to definitely lease some spaces to her to help accommodate her parking situation. Keep in mind, I have been there for 12 years, and Dr. Harvey left about 8 to 10 years ago, something like that. So I've been sandwiched in between 2 vacant properties. And luckily, she was able to show you visuals of the good side. That is the good side. The not so good side is the property south of me, where I've pretty much had rats, squirrels. I'm surprised I haven't had a bear come through there. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the condition of the place. So I am looking forward to greeting, supporting, and welcoming fresh business to the wonderful city of Alpharetta. And they have my unwavering support.
And then I have a Judy Sanderson of 319 Canton Street, who is opposed to.
Yes.
I am Judy, this is my iPad. I am Judy Sanderson. I presently I own 319 Canton Street, which is we share the east-west border. I have an acre there, so part of my property also is adjacent to, which is news to me, the shared parking, but I live, so I own that property. I count for 2, that's what I'm trying to say, rather than one person. But I want to say that I appreciate Alpharetta and what you've done. I grew up on Canton Street. 75 years ago, I was walking up and down the street. I then moved to Milton, and about 5 years ago, I won't get into that, we lost our home to a house fire, so we moved to a place in Dawsonville. My dad, who's died a year ago, 99 years old, decided he wanted to leave his house on Canton Street to me because he knew I wanted to come back. So I inherited it, and we are in the plans of making plans to build. We are actually doing a rendering now to present. But anyway, I want to come back. It's home to me. Never lived anywhere else. My parents never lived anywhere in their whole 75 years of marriage except on Canton Street. So anyway, that being said, I want to say I've done a little bit of research on this. I've learned things that I didn't know that I even needed to know, but I'm glad I know now. I've met with the city officials, and we come up with the different kinds of conditions. I met with the stormwater engineer as well, even though I walked out in the rain. We've had rain recently, which was good, and I found no stormwater runoff. But anyway, it makes me wonder where we would have put those trees if we hadn't designed for that catch basin to be there. That's a question I want to ask in a few minutes when we look at the diagram. I've gotten counsel from some other business owners about commercial exhaust filtration systems, which are quite expensive, and I think that's about the only thing that would actually remedy the odor that might come from some restaurants because they're going to be so close to my property. Those cost about $20,000 to $50,000, I think. And then I did get on a Teams meeting with underground dumpsters in Kissimmee, Florida, and it was really interesting. I just kind of fell into that, and I don't think we're able to do that here because we need a truck and a crane, but I don't think we're able to do that. But anyway, those would cost like $25,000 to $35,000, and I've actually read some city ordinances as well. But the money I'm talking about probably added up would not even come close to the amount of money that my property's value would be affected by. So I'm very much opposed to the restaurant, and I'm not a person who enjoys conflict. I'm not one that likes to have any kind of animosity going on, but I think we've missed the boat on this one because there's a few things I'd like to point out. One, let's see where I got. Not only because it affects my privacy, security, the value of my property, and the ambiance of my backyard, it also sets a dangerous prerequisite for other things that might come on that street, the corridor. I know that I don't think the restaurant is in compliance with really what the city is trying to accomplish. I looked at, and help me here if you know, I looked at Ordinance 807. It has 7 points to it. I hope I'm in the right place. That's the only reason I'm asking. I'm not testing anything. But that ordinance says that when you're looking at a conditional use and a rezoning, it needs to be to the extent in which the buffers and screening are provided on the property. And that's number 2 of the 7. And I wonder in the diagram, if we didn't have this little catch basin, where would we put that opaque buffer? Because I think those parking spaces that might not even be enough, they come right to the property line in the back. Number 3, it says, and that's of the 7 points, ensuring that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties or impair property values within surrounding neighborhoods. That's number 3. I put a star by that one because I think that's probably the main one I'm thinking of. The number 7 is in rezoning or conditional use, ensuring that the conditional use is appropriately separated from conflicting uses such as residences. So I think the prime example here is that we do have, I don't know if a commercial, it's not commercial, I don't think restaurants are classified as that. But we do have a business that has a lot of impact, a restaurant that has a lot of impact on the surrounding areas. So I think this proposal is setting a dangerous prerequisite for more of the same along North Main Street that backs up to what we think, and I'm excited about, the Garden District. Some prime property there that, granted, it is value, but it's not, to me, it's not just the value, because I intend to live there for a long time. It's not just the value, it's that in the planning yesterday, I was talking to the builder, and we were looking at an outdoor kitchen. I said, I don't think we need to do an outdoor kitchen because the dumpster is right on the buffer line, and the rodents, as we know there would be, unless it's going to be emptied daily, would be leaving and probably coming over to my yard. So the loss of privacy, I'm almost finished. The loss of privacy, the ambiance, and the value and enjoyment is lost. The increase of crime, noise, and odorous origins, and maybe the potential, this is kind of funny, risk of inebriated patrons in the parking lot, which would be, and if we're going to share with the neighbor, they would be right on the property line because his business, the parking lot does come right up to the line because it's been there for a while. Not to mention, as someone else mentioned, the lights. And it takes, the car lights, it takes 2 years, I think, for the canopy to grow. We're given 2 years for it to be opaque. So for 2 years, not only would they be able to see me in my yard, I will be able to see what's going on in there as well. So additional conditions, I did ask, and I think Michael mentioned this one, which I don't know how much would help, but a neighbor who, there are some concerns, but a neighbor said, well, they have a pool next door and wondered if from the 2-story building, are they going to be able to peer over into their backyard? So I asked for no windows, but then there's steps that go up the back. So I don't know if that's a big deal or not, but it would be if you're looking for privacy. I'm asking for the commercial exhaust filtration because I think that's the only way, if this goes through, I'm asking that it be denied, actually, but if it goes to council, I think we'd have to have the really professional commercial exhaust system because if we're just doing the fans toward, which I asked for, the fans toward North Main Street, but when I did the research with some other businesses in Alpharetta, they said you really need the commercial grade because when the wind blows, it's not going to save anything. An underground dumpster I'd love to have because I don't want the rats and I don't want any odors. And another thing, I'm not going to say that one because I'm hoping that it's monitored. That's a fear of mine. Like, okay, am I going to be in my backyard trying to figure out, okay, do I have to go call somebody to say the odor's there, call somebody to say it's too noisy, you know, to monitor it, to be a policeman in my own backyard. So yes, in closing, I adamantly oppose because the negative impact that it most definitely would have on the property, and even with the conditions, if every single one of them were in place, it still would have a negative impact on my property. I don't think there's a way to remedy it. I just don't think that the two are compatible. I don't think a restaurant abutting a residential is compatible. I don't know there's a way to make it be that way. I didn't mention the grease trap. I wanted it to be further away because I do know that when the grease trap has not been emptied, that you can walk by it and smell it. I know what it smells like when you empty it. But that would be another thing, and we can't really tell where that can be. I asked for it to be on the side, but I think we don't know for sure. And I heard Michael say it was going to be toward the rear of the building. So I think that comes with planning and when they actually did the site development or something. So thank you for your time. I love Alpharetta. I'm passionate about it. I have been. I taught school here for 31 years, Alpharetta Elementary. I lived there. I was back when you knew everybody. And I looked around thinking, oh, I don't know anybody, which is really unusual. But nice to meet you. Thank you for all you've done. The reason I want to come back is because it's so wonderful here. I am here every other day and every Sunday. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Ma'am, just to clarify,
We have a question. Yeah.
it's not a question, it's a statement, actually. I would plan on being back here in 2 weeks unless the applicant withdraws their application, because this meeting, for the lack of better terms, is a dress rehearsal.
I'm sorry, what?
Is a dress rehearsal. Regardless of what we decide, to approve or to deny, it's still going to council. So you need to go to that meeting.
Whether it's approved or denied, okay, all right.
So we're just.
Well, I didn't drive down here and do all that because I'm a nervous wreck. I'm not good with public speaking.
I just wanted to make sure you knew
Well, it was a
that.
good dress rehearsal, so I can do this again at council. And then, because it'll go, right?
Okay, let me clarify. We're a recommending body, and our recommendation is highly considered, it's valuable to our city council. So they review the minutes, they look, and our recommendation is very important to city council in their decision. But it's not the final decision, it's their decision. So you will do the same thing that you've done tonight in front of city council. Michael will present, the applicant will come forward, and then you have the chance to say exactly what you did again tonight. So that's what he meant by dress rehearsal.
Okay, great. Okay,
Okay.
well, thank you.
You're welcome. I
Any
love
other
the fact that you're
questions?
passionate. I love the fact that you're here. We all take great notes when it comes to our public comment, for and against. It's really important that our citizens have a voice,
Well, that
and
says
we
a
do
lot.
listen.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Okay, is there any other member of the public who didn't sign up but would like to speak in favor or opposed?
The people that you gave me are on your team, right? Okay, you can come up.
If you would state your name and address for me, please.
Yes, and you have my form. I think it's there. My name is Alexis Severit. I'm a neighbor of downtown Alpharetta. I live in 285 Pebble Trail, right here, in less than 1 mile down the street. So I just want to state that I'm in favor of the project. I have been very familiar with the way that was developed and conceived from the beginning. I know the family. I can attest that they are a very close, tight business group. And by being close to the way they conceived their vision of having a family restaurant in the area, I can attest that it is consistent with what we have seen in the city over the years. I have been here several times to give my opinion and my support or opposition to several projects, and a few things that I always look at by being a neighbor of downtown is first the tree conservancy. I'm a big supporter of the trees. I hate when we cut trees to build houses. I think there is no way that a house can be better than a tree. I do not like fences, so the comment of one fence between properties, I think, is something we can replace with actual trees and landscaping, so to make more of a natural buffer between the properties. I do believe that there is harmony between the project and what is, again, in the area and will be conceived or built around. There are other restaurants in the area. There will be one next door, too. So I don't think this is nothing new or something that will be too disruptive for the plan of the downtown to Alpharetta. So, and finally, I do count negatives versus positive. Living right behind the property as well, I walk by frequently, I drive by frequently. I think positive are way more than negatives in this project. When I saw how the decline of this property went over the years, I think having this new development will be really an improvement to the area. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to come forward in favor or against or opposed? Okay, with no members of the public waiting to speak and no further comment, we'll close the public hearing. And so now I'll open it up for discussion with the board. Would the applicant like to come forward and address any of the concerns that the resident made, or do you have you want to make any comments as a rebuttal? I just want to give you the opportunity. Okay. Did you want to say something? Yes? If you would come forward, please, and state your name and address.
I need to press a button.
It's on.
Okay, all right. I'm Chris Partain with Partain Engineering. I'm the civil engineer that developed the plan, the site plan. And I just wanted to clear up a few things. I think you guys have got questions about parking. So I'm old enough to remember when parking ordinances were written so that cars wouldn't be stacking up on the sides of the road, that places would have enough parking for their customers to park there. In the last 10 to 15 years, the push seems to be to reduce parking and encourage people to walk or ride bicycles. The downtown ordinance seems to be geared to that. So we meet the code requirement. We actually exceed, I think Michael pointed out, the code requirement for parking. However, you know, I have expressed some concern about parking, and I think that's why she approached the neighbor to the north. The other thing I want to mention is the ubiquitous storm drain and the buffer. So what you see is kind of what was in that picture that Michael showed you. I mean, we're talking about a pedestal top inlet. Sometimes you see these things on the side of the road, and it's 3 foot, 4 foot in diameter, or it's about a 4x4 square that sits maybe 10, 12 inches above the ground. Yeah, it's ugly concrete, no question about it, but this thing, if you look at the landscape plan, it's going to have so many trees and bushes around it. I mean, probably almost day one you won't see it, especially if you're trying to look through all that and you're on the other side of the property 50, 100 feet away sitting in a house. You're not going to see it. The other thing I'd like to mention too is I think an aerial image would have been really helpful here, but there's a building or some sort of shed structure on the property behind us. So, I mean, I certainly understand the concern with headlights. I live in a rural area, and you know, I used to have woods and deer running through my yard and that kind of thing, and then somebody came in and built a subdivision behind me. So I understand that concern. But once you go through 50 feet of vegetation, some of the vegetation that's up against the property line is pretty thick. I mean, there's not much of it, as Michael points out. There's maybe 10 feet of it, but it's thick. It's undergrowth. I mean, it's kind of 10 feet of what surveyors refer to as Georgia jungle. And if you've got that, a building, we're down low, so our lights are shining kind of into an area that's rising up. I just don't know how much you're going to see of headlights. I just thought I'd mention that. But the storm drain is there. The reason I have that shown is the big push. If Jill Bazinet was here, she could tell you the big push is to try and not have storm water leaving your site, but to have it percolate into the ground and recharge aquifers and to help streams and whatnot without impacting, raising flood levels and that sort of thing. So the big push is to percolate, infiltrate stormwater into the ground. And that's why we have the pervious pavers. However, if you're familiar with pervious pavers, you have small cracks and voids. I'm sorry?
You were coming up here to address the parking, not the drainage or all of that. It was specifically to the parking.
I was coming up here to address various issues that I've heard.
But that would have been during the comments. Madam Chairman?
I'm quite okay.
Okay.
Let's let him finish, please.
Okay, I was, the pervious pavers, the way they work, you have small voids. If you have runoff coming onto your site, you're going to get sediments and vegetation and whatnot, and it's going to clog those pores and make the pervious pavers a maintenance headache. It's going to make them not as effective to do their job, to capture water and allow it to percolate into the ground. So this is really a catchment area, not because we're worried about flooding of water, stormwater. We're more worried about flooding of things like sediments and vegetation, grass clipping, things like that. So that was just trying to collect questions here that I'm hearing and answer them if I can.
I appreciate your input. Thank you. Yes? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief. So I did want to let you know what my opinion on some of those conditions that Ms. Anderson presented to you. I don't know if it's required, but I did want to let you know that I absolutely understand that you don't want any odors in your house or your property, and I'm willing to do the venting towards North Main Street instead of to the rear of the property. I totally understand nobody wants live music and any disturbances as far as noise goes, so I'm willing to comply with that. I own a house and I understand what that's like, so I have no problem with that. The employee break area that she's requesting that we decide on a break area outside near my building, I can understand that. And actually, I don't want my employees lurking around my property anyway. So that's why we planned that balcony upstairs for some privacy for my employees. But I absolutely understand where she's coming from with that. The no signage in the back, it was hard for me to decide. Of course, I want to bother her, but it's not a big deal. I really don't want to delay any process just by saying that I'm opposed to it. I'm willing to work with my neighbors, and that's why I've been able to build long relationships with my neighbors. So if that's important to her, I can comply, even though at the beginning it was something for me to think about. The grease trap near my building, that's something we haven't gotten there yet, but it's very most likely going to be towards the building in the back. I do not agree with having to put a metal fence between the end of my parking lot and the buffer area. That will box in my parking lot even more, and it just won't look good. So I will not be agreeing to that. And not having windows in the back, I will also not be agreeing to that, because human beings need natural light. It's just a basic need. And that's all I needed to say.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to open it up for discussion for the board.
I'll just share my 2 cents with my fellow commissioners. My 2 cents is, as I mentioned earlier, the downtown consultant's 8 design recommendations must be followed. And I've already spoken my piece on that. That needs to be nailed down by the council meeting, and I'm going to overlook it today because it sounds like there's some consensus, but not 100%. But where I land is I tried to do a little inventory while we were talking about restaurants, and I broke it up between Academy, which is the heart of downtown, Academy to Mayfield. I looked at that first, and I thought of places like Mercantile Social, Flatlands, which happens to be one of my favorite restaurants, the breakfast place in front of Flatlands that kind of shares frontage on North Main. I can't remember the name of it. But then when I go from Mayfield up to Dunkin' Donuts, I think of Cafe Effendi. I happen to get my hair cut at the guy there tomorrow's world-class barbershop. Highly recommend it. And then even next door, just a month or two ago, this body approved a bakery that has small restaurant uses right next door to the applicant's property. And so, you know, from where I sit, the comprehensive land use designation for the property is mixed-use live-work, which allows the proposed zoning and uses. And as far as the public comment, which I very much respect, I feel like the 7 conditions, conditions 16 through 22, largely address the concerns in the public comment. So that's kind of where my feelings on the applicant's proposal.
Thank you, Todd. Anybody else?
Well, I'll speak up. My question would be, would we even be discussing this if Highway 9 had been completed by now? And the answer is no. It's not. But yes, this project of Highway 9 actually started when I was still on city council almost 8 years ago. So I totally understand. I understand how the property's been dilapidated. I understand the concern that the owner has and the applicant has. I embrace the applicant's passion to start a business here in Alpharetta, no question. But, you know, the dumpster issue, that's a real issue. That's a real issue to houses that back up to there. Do I believe that the Garden District thinks that this is probably a good idea? I'm not so sure. We've picked up, you know, a bakery or whatever, but not a restaurant with 14 parking spots where, you know, 4 of them are probably going to be taken by employees. And I appreciate, Doctor, you helping out. I get it. But you know what? I can't guarantee, you can't guarantee that you're going to be the owner of that property forever or the people next door. So while it is a nice idea to have overflow parking, it's not necessarily something that we can keep in place. You know, the signage is a concern to me. We have a city just south of us who, let's just say, took conditional zonings, and they have the issues and are still dealing with the issues that they have today. I don't want to be that. I think we've had a plan in place for a while, and I think the market definitely determines those things. Like I said, I appreciate the passion of the applicant, but this is not something I can support.
Thank you, Commissioner Aiken. Anybody else?
I have a quick comment. Vegetative screening can do a very nice job of creating a distinction between the residential property and a commercial entity. And that's great. I'm glad to see such a robust plan. The one thing that it can't do is stop vermin and odors. And even if we were to robustly vent any outventing of cooking smells towards Main Street, wind blows. And it does not then mean it's going to stay contained to the front of the building. It's going to impact surrounding homes. That and extended hours until 11 o'clock at night or later will definitely change the character for any adjoining residential properties. Yes, it is currently a blighted property, and it will be a wonderful thing when it is redeveloped with something that fits with the surrounding residential. But I do respect that there is residential, that there's a lot of effort going into people redeveloping their residential properties within downtown. That is a wonderful thing. It is doing fantastic things for Alpharetta overall. So I would like to be supportive of homeowners who want to stay in their residential properties, even if they're adjoining commercial. We just need to make sure that the commercial is compatible with its residential neighbors. So I do have some concerns about this application for that reason.
One thing about this is I do think it's a great idea to have a restaurant in your own business, but the thought of another neighbor having a dumpster in their backyard is definitely a concern, so I do think there's some concerns with the application.
It's clearly a blighted, piece of property, and the idea that you want to come in and do something with it, I think is really positive. I think long-term, I don't know what the Downtown Business Association is gonna, what impact that and GDOT is gonna have on Highway 9. We really don't know. Whatever we do, the thing that gets to me the most is the dumpster. I think that's the one that sort of sings to all of us for somebody that's staying in their house. I'm definitely not, a NIMBY, but if they were putting a dumpster behind my house, I probably would be up here at City Hall as well. So that's a really tough thing to do, and I don't know if there could be something that rectifies that, but that makes this really hard.
Michael, would it be possible to put the site plan up and maybe just, I want to make sure we all, and including the public, can see the location of the dumpster?
So the dumpster is located right here.
And
This is your 50-foot of buffer from the rear property line to about this point, and the dumpster starts right there. It's positioned right in the parking lot.
And is that dumpster enclosed with some type of?
Yes, we do require dumpsters be within an enclosure, so it will have walls on 3 sides, and as per the condition, would have a metal opaque gate. It does not have a roof over top of it.
And it's 50 feet from the property line?
It is shown at 50 feet from the rear property line at this point. It is just outside that 50-foot undisturbed buffer.
Now, can you also overlay the vegetated area slide so we can, I want to know, is there revegetated area between that and the 50 feet away the property line?
So here's the landscape plan where they show the revegetation of that 50-foot buffer. The dumpster sits approximately here, so there is some revegetation that will occur right behind the dumpster.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I'm open the floor for a motion to be made.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion, Ms. Chairwoman, that we approve Z-24-03/CU-24-03/V-24-03, Mamitas Tacos and Cantina /312 North Main Street, subject to the conditions as read by Mr. Woodman, with the following edits, and I think I got them, so if anybody on the commission, if I missed any, or if staff notices that I miss any, please let me know these edits. So in condition 1, we want to change the site plan date from 12/5/23 to 1/30/24. For condition number 4, we want to change the square footage of the outdoor seating area from 900 to 700. Whoop. Wow, you guys are good. 745.
Correct.
It takes a village. Condition number 7, we want to remove reference to the landscape plan dated 11/30/23 and instead say revised 1/30/24. And then there's a second reference to 11/30/23 in condition 7, and we'd like to also change that to revised 1/30/24. Moving down to condition 12, the next edit is we want to, once again, change the reference to the site plan. It says dated 12/5/23. We want to change that to 1/30/24. And I believe I got all the edits.
I think so.
That's my motion.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
All right, is there any further discussion on the motion?
The dumpster thing gets under my skin and makes me crawl, and I think everybody feels like that. 50 feet is not a small distance, and that's a pretty good buffer. And if there are other tweaks to this, I'm hoping City Council can help with that. The property needs some love, so that's why I'm supporting the motion.
All right. Is all commissioners in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. Okay, I think the motion is denied, or it's not passed.
Yeah, we have to make a motion.
Madam Commissioner, I'd like to make Chair, I'd like to make a motion to deny Z-24-03/C-U-24-03/V-24-03 Mamitas Tacos and Cantina, 312 North Main Street.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All commissioners in favor of this motion, please raise your hand.
Discussion.
Any discussion? Before we vote, sorry. Okay. All commissioners in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? All right, the motion is passed. Is denied. The application is denied. But this still goes to City Council, and you'll have a chance to say your piece again there. All right? Thank you. I was going to give everybody. Okay, we are going to do our next agenda item, MP-24-01/CU-24-02, the Golf Sanctuary. Mr. Woodman, I believe you're presenting this item as well.
Thank you again, Chairwoman and Commissioners. The next item before you is a request for a master plan amendment and conditional use to allow the Golf Sanctuary to reuse a 20,450 square foot building on 2.18 acres in the North Point overlay. The Golf Sanctuary is an entertainment use consisting of indoor golf simulators and a restaurant. Building was previously occupied by Total Wine. And a master plan amendment is requested to add recreation facilities indoor to the North Point Mall master plan and a conditional use to allow recreation facilities indoor for the Golf Sanctuary. And I do have the location map on the overhead. Property is located at 380 North Point Circle. Property is zoned PSC, Planned Shopping Center, It's subject to the North Point Mall Master Plan. So you have the master plan covered all of the mall area, and then there are 3 out parcels along North Point Parkway that were also incorporated into that master plan. These properties are not owned by the mall ownership, they are owned separately. And this is basically from the California Pizza Kitchen down to this parcel. So each of those are individually owned. They're covered by the North Point Mall Master Plan, but they are out parcels and not part of the mall property. Just wanted to clarify that. North Point Mall, of course, is located to the north of the property. American Backyard Outdoor Furniture is located to the east. Truist Bank is located to the west, and across North Point Parkway is Outback Steakhouse to the south. The Golf Sanctuary is an indoor golf recreation facility. It has a sit-down restaurant and bar area. The business offers corporate and family memberships, which includes 24-hour access to the golf simulators. The business has an existing location in Brentwood, Tennessee, and this would be the first location in Georgia if approved. Now, there are staffed hours of operation for this use Monday through Sunday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Then, as I mentioned, if you're a corporate or family membership, you have access to the golf simulators outside of regular business hours, and that's managed through a mobile app on your smartphone, similar to the 24-hour gym concepts that we see at a lot of the fitness gyms. The applicant anticipates about 20 to 25 employees for this business. This is the applicant's site plan, so this is just basically the former Total Wine building. The entrance to the building is kind of oriented to the side here, and then you have your parking surrounding the existing building. Again, it's just over 20,000 square foot building. They're not adding on to the square footage of the building. They're utilizing what is there today. There are a total of 114 parking spaces within the existing parking lot. Some of those parking spaces, this is in the North Point area. This reuse of this building does not trigger requirements that this business meet the requirements for open space and eco-district measures by just reusing this business. This is very similar to a couple months ago when we had the Celebrity School that was looking at the old Golden Corral. That project didn't trigger compliance with the open space requirements in North Point in the eco-district, yet that applicant did offer to provide some additional open space and eco-district measures, and this applicant has done the same thing. So they've committed to providing some eco-district measures, sustainable landscaping, and some reserved parking in the parking lot for band pools and rideshare. So they are going over and beyond. They have also added some additional open space. So right now, this is just a row of parking along North Point Parkway. The applicant shows on the site plan adding in landscape tree islands within the parking lot. Current code would have required one of those every, I believe, 7 to 8 parking spaces. So the applicant actually added this in, and we believe that those will have a lot of impact being located along North Point Parkway. There's one that's been added here in this row of parking along North Point Circle, and then they did add a couple adjacent to the Truist Bank over to the west of this property. So they did add about 1,600 square foot of open space with those landscaped islands and the commitment to the eco-district measures, even though they were not triggered with this development. The applicant, even with the loss of those few parking spaces, they still have well above the minimum requirement of parking spaces, which is a total of 90 spaces. So they're I believe, going to be at about 106 spaces. And then the applicant did provide, before I go to the renderings, this is the applicant's layout for the building. The areas shown in green are the actual golf simulator bays. I can't remember from the review, I want to say it was 13 to 14 or so bays. 16 bays, thank you. The restaurant and bar area is represented in the orange area, and then the blue area is really just common space or where the customer comes in, and it's just kind of community open space areas. So these are the applicant's renderings. So they're not making, as I mentioned, they're not really making any physical changes to the building, but they are making exterior changes to the look of the building. So there's painting of the building, in addition to adding some additional window framing on one side of the building where there's just a blank wall. They've also are showing slatted awnings being added to the building. And then they're also adding some horizontal natural wood accents on the building. Today, the building is pretty shabby. You can tell that it's not been occupied for a couple of years. But just to give you an example, so this is the old masonry block that was used on this building. This is a view of the building from North Point Parkway. This is a view of the building with the old, you can kind of see the old Total Wine sign, so that was the entrance. This is the view from the mall looking at the side of the property. We did send these proposed renderings to our downtown consultant. Occasionally, the downtown consultant is really focused in the downtown area, but we will ask our architect expert to give us advice. He's familiar with the North Point expectations, the vision for North Point, which does promote that industrial, modern, contemporary type look on buildings. He believes that these elevations are contributing to that vision. We looked at the review criteria for a master plan amendment and conditional use. We did believe that the addition of another entertainment use in restaurant to the North Point area will aid as the area continues to reinvent itself and add to the shopping experience of the area. We do not believe that there are any impacts from this development that would impact the natural environment. The property does have sufficient access, and it was developed with the minimum requirements with regard to parking, landscaping, and screening. And we do not believe that the proposal, should it be approved, would adversely affect the usability of any nearby properties. This item was shown to the public at the January 10th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There was one public comment in support of the request. And with that, staff is recommending approval. Subject to 12 conditions, and I'll just read through those conditions. Condition 1, recreation facilities indoor shall be listed as a conditional use in the North Point Mall Master Plan. 2, recreation facilities indoor shall be added as a conditional use at 380 North Point Circle and limited to no more than 20,450 square feet. 3, conditional use approval shall be limited to the golf sanctuary. No additional recreation facilities indoor use or subleasing shall be permitted within the approved space. 4, recreation facilities indoor shall be limited to golf simulators and a restaurant with no drive-through. 5 are the hours of operation, and that goes on to say 24-hour access to members shall be limited to the golf simulators only. Restaurant and bar shall be limited to regular hours of operation. 6, site and open space shall be developed substantially similar to the site plan prepared by Civil Logistics dated 1/22/24. 7, building exterior shall be substantially similar to the submitted renderings, which are these renderings labeled Exhibit A with final approval by DRB. Proposed exterior materials shall be similar to type, style, and colors depicted in the North Point Overlay District design guidelines. So we have particular colors and materials that are in those design guidelines that we would want the applicant to utilize. Condition 8, eco-district points shall be substantially similar to the description provided in the staff report as approved by staff. Developer shall provide detailed information at LDP, land disturbance permit, and building permit regarding compliance with each requested eco-district measure. 9, property owner shall assess site landscaping and replace missing, dead, or dying landscape material with final approval by DRB. New landscape material shall be sustainable, meaning native or drought-tolerant landscaping with final approval by DRB. 10, dumpster shall have painted metal doors that complement the principal building with final approval by DRB. 11, native and drought-tolerant shrubs and grasses shall be added to the foundation area around the building, planter area along North Point Circle, and at the highest elevation of the landscape strip along North Point Parkway with final approval by DRB. 12, a green wall shall be added to the north or south elevation of the building with final approval by DRB. And then the south elevation is the frontage along North Point Parkway, the north elevation being along North Point Circle. And that concludes the report. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Michael. I'll open it up for questions from the board. You did a great job once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say to the applicant sitting there, I'm really sorry we didn't tell you to bring your parkas here tonight because it is freezing in here once again. And I'm sorry that it's so cold, but we just somehow can't get the temperature right in this facility. Would the applicant like to come forward and make a presentation, please? If you would, if you'd state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Candace Shriver. I'm with H. Michael Hyman Architects, representing the applicant. And thank you all for giving us consideration tonight, and thank you to Michael for such a wonderful presentation. I'd like to introduce my team as well. Billy Brown is the CEO of Golf Sanctuary here tonight, and then we also have our civil team, Michael and David from Civil Logistics. We're so excited to be a part of the North Point Eco District. We're excited to contribute and to revitalize this building. And we are happy to answer any questions you may have, but I think Michael covered everything very well.
Well, thank you. Questions from the board?
I did have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Given the extended hours of operations, 24/7, I had one concern about whether there would be parking lot surveillance for the security of any patrons coming and going at odd hours.
Billy? Yes.
Anybody else? No? Well, that was pretty easy. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I'll open it up for any public comment. Is there anybody, do we have any?
We don't have any.
I didn't think so, but I was giving, just in case, the opportunity. So if no public comment, then I'll open it up for the board for comment and a motion. Any comments?
I do have a comment, and I just think it's good that you revitalize and repurpose a building that's been dead and taking a stab at North Point Mall area that, who knows what's actually going to happen over there. Hopefully some really good things, and you'll be part of it.
Anybody else? Anybody like to make a motion?
Madam Chairlady, I'd like to make a motion to approve MP-24-01/CU-24-02, the Golf Sanctuary / North Point Mall Master Plan, subject to the following conditions as laid out by staff.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you. Is there anything else? Any other items to discuss? I get to do the gavel? It's my pleasure to be the acting commissioner tonight, so thank you for joining us, and dismissed.